Node.js is a programming language. Node.js is a framework. Node.js is a runtime environment. Node.js is a server-side JavaScript runtime environment that allows developers to execute JavaScript code outside of the web browser. It is built on the V8 JavaScript engine, which is the same engine which powers the Google Chrome browser. While Node.js is a powerful platform, there are certain practices or modules that may not be considered as best practices or are deprecated. Here are a few things that you might want to avoid or reconsider in your Node.js. Using Node.js version 4 or below. Ensure you're using a Node.js version that is actually maintained and receives security updates. Version 4 and below are no longer supported.
Node.js version 4 reached its end-of-life EOL on April 30th, 2018, meaning it no longer receives security patches, bug fixes, or any official support.
Older Node versions can contain known vulnerabilities that can be exploited by the attacker. Using unsupported versions can lead your application to security risks, data breaches, malware injection, unauthorized access, etc. Actively maintained versions receive regular security updates which addresses these vulnerabilities. Staying updated, you significantly reduce the chances of attacks. Next one is callbacks everywhere. Instead of relying heavily on callbacks, consider using promises or async await for more readable and maintainable code. For example, look at this code which reads a file based on callback. Similar code which actually uses promises is also displayed here. Using async await improves readability as the flow of code reflects the logical sequence of operations. Also, async await is built on top of promises, making it compatible with promise-based APIs. Many modern libraries and frameworks in JavaScript use promises, and async await simplifies working with these APIs. Using var to declare variables. Prefer using const or let for variable declaration instead of var to avoid scope-related issues. Const and let are block scoped, which means they are only accessible within the block where they are defined. This is in contrast to var, which has function scope. Block scoping reduces the chance of unintended variable hosting and can prevent scope-related bugs. Next one is hoisting behavior. Variables declared as var are hosted on top of their containing function or global scope. This means the variable declared is moved to the top of the compilation phase, but the assignment remains place. This can lead to unexpected behavior. Const and let declarations are hoisted as well, but they are not initialized until the line where they are declared, preventing access to uninitialized values. Consider this code snippet where my variable is declared in the second line. This is equal to the following snippet of code during compilation. In this example, console.log myvar statement is encountered before the actual declaration and assignment of myvar. During the compilation phase, the variable declaration is hoisted to the top of its scope, but the assignment remains in place. Therefore, at the time of the console.log statement, myvar has been declared but not yet assigned a value, result in undefined. It's important to note that hoisting occurs with var declarations but not with let and const.
You get to decide.
One of the reasons to use const is because it is immutable. When using const, the variable cannot be reassigned after the initial assignment. This prevents immutability and accidental reassignment of variables. However, it is important to note that const doesn't itself make the value immutable, only the variable difference. Using let avoids unintended reassignments. Variables declared with let can be reassigned. It allows you to reassign variables with the same block or scope, reduce the risk of unintentionally shadowing the variables. For example, look at this piece of code. The var variable is accessible outside the block function scope, whereas the let variable is not defined and const variable is not defined, which is inside block scope. Node.js core modules for HTTPS servers. Instead of directly using HTTP or HTTPS modules directly for building a server, consider using more feature-rich frameworks like Express. Consider this piece of code which uses HTTPS and another piece of code which uses Express. It's better to prefer Express. But why? Using the core HTTP or HTTPS modules are not inherently bad. They're actually the foundation for building web servers and making HTTPS requests in Node.js application. However, there are situations where using higher level frameworks or libraries built on top of these core modules might be preferred. Some of the reasons are middleware support. Frameworks often come with middleware support, allowing you to easily extend the functionality of your application. Middleware can handle tasks like authentication, logging, and error handling in a more modular way. Next reason is routing. Frameworks usually provide a routing mechanism that helps organize and handle different routes and endpoints in your application. This makes it easier to define the structure of your application or web API. Next reason is community support. Popular frameworks have a large and active community, which means more available resources, tutorials, and third-party modules. This can speed up development and provide solutions to common problems. There are many more reasons like security features, testing and debugging, performance, etc., which is not provided by the core modules. Next one is avoid using Node.js cluster module for scaling. Instead of using a cluster module for scaling, consider using process manager like PM2 or deploying your application on a platform that handles scaling. Process Process Manager like PM2 provides a simple and user-friendly interface for managing Node.js processes. Offer features like process monitoring, automatic restarts, and log management without requiring complex code modifications. Using a process manager abstracts away the complexity of maintaining multiple instances of your application, making it easier to deploy and maintain. Next one is callback hell, pyramid of doom. As I already said, avoid using callbacks, especially deeply nested callbacks. Use promises or async away to flatten the code. For example, it is better to avoid these type of codes and prefer using this type of code. Deeply nested callbacks makes the code difficult to read and understand. As the indentation level increases, it becomes challenging to follow the logical flow of the code. Proper error handling also becomes complex in deeply nested callbacks. If you avoid using callbacks, the code will be better maintainable and better to debug. Next one is global variables. Avoid using global variables as they may lead to unexpected behavior and also make the code harder to maintain. Global variables break the encapsulation and modularity by making the data accessible from anywhere in the program. In some scenarios, global variables may lead to security vulnerabilities, especially if sensitive information is stored in them. Unauthorized access or modification to global variables can pose security risks. In multi-threaded or asynchronous environments, global variables can lead to race conditions and other concurrency issues. Unintended modifications to global state by different parts of the program can lead to unexpected behavior. Avoid blocking operations, especially in event loop. Use asynchronous non-blocking methods. For example, it's better to avoid this type of code and prefer this. Node.js is actually designed to handle large number of concurrent connections. Blocking operations can hinder scalability. Each blocked operation ties up a thread, limiting the system's ability to handle other incoming requests. Blocking operations can also result in slower response times, especially in applications with a high volume of concurrent requests. Non-blocking operations helps to ensure that the application remains responsive to incoming requests. Next is Node.js buffers for string manipulation. Instead of using buffers directly for string manipulation, it is better to use string methods or third-party libraries like Nodejs. For example, have a look at this code which is using buffer. We get the original buffer, reversed buffer, and then we iterate and store the entire result in the reverse string. Without using buffer, the Nodejs method looks clean and elegant. Some reasons for using string methods or libraries is code maintenance. Code that uses string methods or libraries is generally more maintainable. If there are changes or updates to the string manipulation logic, it's easy to modify and extend code that leverages higher level abstractions. Also, performance optimization. String methods and libraries are often optimized for performance and have undergone extensive testing. They are likely to provide efficient implementations for common string patterns, making them a reliable choice for most of the scenarios. Also, there are few other reasons like compatibility and portability, error avoidance, etc., which are far better when using string methods or third-party libraries. Next one is nested ternary operator. Avoid complex nested ternary operators for better code readability. Avoid using a function like this. Instead, you can prefer using a function like this. A complex nested ternary operator leads to confusion and very hard to debug in case of issues. These suggestions are not strict rules but represent common practices and recommendations for writing cleaner, more maintainable Node.js code. If you have any recommendations on how to use Node.js better, let me know in the comments. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to my channel for more such content.